Both my parents were born in Dutaracha. My father was born, I think, in 1880. And my mother was born, I think, 8 years later, 1888. How my father got to Owine, evidently he must have known somebody that was already there who I don't know. But he went there. He came to this country in 1914 from Italy, and he left his wife and son in Derivacia. And of what I understand is that he worked and sent them money to my mother and brother so that they could come here, and they did. And when they reached Ellis Island, my father had evidently sent them enough money or the proper credentials and tickets, because when they got to Ellis Island in New York, the itinerary shows that they were going to Owine from New York automatically. So my father had set it up so that they didn't have to worry about anything about getting to Owine. To the best of my knowledge, he was a Boilermaker washer. By this, is what I understand, is when a steam engine would come in and they'd have to do work to it, the boiler inside the steam engine had to be re-cleaned and done something, and that was his job. Him and this other person that lived upstairs in our house, Leonard Ligori, they both worked together, and my father worked from 4 to 12 all of the years that I've known, 6 days a week, or 7 days a week. In 1946 or 47, when the diesel engines came in, that's when the railroad started going downhill there in Owine. The diesels replaced all of the steam engines. So my father was without a job, and so were my father was fortunate. He was old enough and he got a retirement. So he got a retirement off of the railroad. My father, when he had the house built there in Owine, we were one of the very fortunate ones. This I did not know, but you realize this after you've grown up and listened to other people talk. We lived on a paved street. Now, there weren't too many paved streets back in the 20s. Running water in the house, and we had a gas in the house. So my mother had a gas stove, but we had a coal furnace. You did not heat by gasoline like gas like we do today. So we were very fortunate that we had running water, toilet in the house, because a lot of people still then had the outside toilets where you had to go outside the bathroom. My father had an outside oven made for my mother in a shed all by itself. This way my mother could go out there and make the bread, and she had a tub. Oh, I don't know how big, about this big around, about this deep. She would get up like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning and start needling the bread and making it out of this and that. Then she would take it outside and in the shed where her outside oven was at, make the bread up, and then she would round bread. And I don't know, she used almost about a 50-pound bag. So she made, I don't know how many loaves of bread, and when she made the bread and it was ready, she would get the newspaper, wrap it up. We would take it to different Italian families. My mother baked every 2 weeks. We raised goats, not to the fact that we were selling them, just they would milk them, and I never did care for goat's milk or goat's meat. But they would let a goat grow so long, and then they would kill it and eat it. During the winter time, we'd run a big bill up at the grocery store, at Leo's grocery store. It was just a block away, and we were not allowed to go there to charge ice cream or candy. Potato chips were not even thought of back in those days. It was just for the regular commodities like maybe milk or bread or whatever, to meat. We grew our own produce and sold it to the stores at downtown, but the competition was great because the other Italians were doing it. And I and my brother John, or not John, my brother Dominic and Jim, we had wagons, and we would load the produce on the wagons and take them downtown. If we couldn't get rid of all of it, we'd go in the neighborhoods and knock on doors to sell it. My father, he had our own hotbeds. We had 2 hotbeds, one with his tomatoes and one with his peppers. His specialty was his sweet peppers, but he had hot peppers also. And we had sweet corn was one of the main things that we made money on, was sweet corn and potatoes and peppers. The tomatoes, when he planted them, it was nothing to plant nothing like 300 plants. And my father didn't believe in letting that plant lay on the ground. We staked every one of those tomato plants, and we tied them 4 times with rope from, I think he got it from the roundhouse. I don't think he bought it, but he got it from the roundhouse, and we would tie them 4 times so that the plant never laid down on the ground. And we raised chickens also, and we would sell eggs, and my father would get chickens when they were real small and try to have them ready for the 4th of July, and have sweet corn and spring chickens for the 4th of July and sell them. During the summertime, we would make money off of the garden to help pay the grocery bill that we raised the following winter. Oh yeah, it was something else. Most of the Italian men back in those days wanted their sons for higher education, because this was the thing back in those days. The woman, no. When she finished high school, that was it. Her job was to become a wife or, whatever. And that's the way it was. Now, all of my brothers had higher education outside of high school. My brother Frank, he came to Des Moines here and went to the Capital City Commercial College. It was a 2-year school like AIB. My brother Dominic ended up being an engineer, electrical engineer. My brother Jim took up linotype at Iowa University, but he never followed through on it. My brother John became a teacher. And me, no college. I was one that couldn't grasp reading a book or this and that. It just wasn't meant to be. My brother Jim graduated in 1945, and he had this nice suit that he bought, and he went into the service. Just as soon as he graduated, within 2 weeks, he had to go into service because the war was still going on. 1946, my brother Dominic graduated, used the same suit, same tie, got pictures of him. And in 1947, I used the same suit also. So my brother John, he was kind of husky, so I got to keep the suit. And my brother Frank, in 1940, he was living here in Des Moines. He was staying with the Grandinettes on 2nd Avenue back in those days. He worked at the Liquor Commission. And in 1940, he went into the service. It was one of these deals, the so long dear, see you in a year. Well, he enlisted and went in the Army, and he was in for a year, got discharged, came back home, worked for the Liquor Commission back in 1941 before the war broke out. When the war broke out, they nailed him again. Now, he was born in Italy, so he had to go through some different kind of rigmarole. And very fortunate for him, he knew how to typewrite. He never left the States. He traveled on these troop trains with in the not the orderly room, but whatever. He knew how to typewrite. And back in those days, in the 40s, early 40s, it saved him from going overseas. And then he got discharged in 1944. He had a broken eardrum. He got discharged in 1944. Mr. Tricino up there at Owine had 2 sisters that lived in New York, in Brooklyn. They knew this woman, and he knew my brother, or, that they made them a shot, and that's how my brother married Helen there in Brooklyn.